I am officially under 100 days until my wedding, my big old wedding. I've mentioned a few times on this podcast that I'm in the midst of planning it. So you've heard me talk about like going on a bridal shower, finding my veil and the dress and all of the things. But I thought it would be a good idea to take a moment to really kind of share what this process has taught me about myself, and being able to like share a little bit about what I've noticed and what hopefully the day that you decide to get married, or maybe the next time you're planning a big event, you'll be able to take something from it. Being limitless is knowing your success and your growth are built on a radical belief in yourself. Limitless is honoring your purpose, your health, and impact above all else. Limitless is never playing small, because the more alive you feel in your life, the more growth and success you attract. Hi, my name is Jamie Ratterman, and I am a holistic business coach, meaning I am just as invested in growing your health as I am in growing your wealth. With 11 plus years in brand and social media marketing, I help rebellious entrepreneurs master marketing, embody leadership, and say fuck it to the hustle. This show is here to encourage you to become more radically aware of your self-imposed limits, to break free of your shoulds, and to expand your brand into a movement led by you. Hello, lovelies, and welcome to another episode of the Limitless Podcast. This episode is something I wanted to share just because I'm going through it. I am officially under 100 days until my wedding, my big old wedding. I've mentioned a few times on this podcast that I'm in the midst of planning it. So you've heard me talk about like going on a bridal shower, finding my veil and the dress and all of the things. But I thought it would be a good idea to take a moment to really kind of share what this process has taught me about myself, and being able to like share a little bit about what I've noticed and what hopefully the day that you decide to get married, or maybe the next time you're planning a big event, you'll be able to take something from it. So the biggest thing about wedding planning is that it's exciting and it is truly exhausting. The mental labor of not only planning a big event, feeling good about what you're planning, and also living your life is something. It's not an easy process. I can definitely tell you that. But before I begin to share what I've learned in this process so far, I think it's important for you to understand a little bit about my relationship, because the two of us are planning this, right? So my fiance and I have been together for 10 and a half years. We met in January of 2013. And in general, I see him already as a life partner. Like it's something that's really fun for me to really realize that he knew me from my very humble beginnings in New York, where I was worried about how much money I had in my account, and got to see my business come to where I am now. He also is somebody I also have been the person that has watched him go through nursing school, has rekindled his love of art, even to we had a military deployment early on in our relationship. So we have had everything in between for the last decade of our time together. It feels like a lifetime. And knowing that like by having these events and having this length of a relationship, we're kind of walking into a wedding looking at it a little differently than maybe somebody who's been together for a year or 2 years. The idea being is that we're already partners. Now we're ready to celebrate and make it official, even though we've been official for a while. And being able to know, like, I know him pretty damn well, especially when we're walking into these wedding planning situations. So in many ways, we knew we were going to be together about 5 years ago. And a lot of our relationship, Fred has taught me that some of my expectations are Western culture expectations that do not make complete sense. For instance, I just want to put this out there. I have been a bridesmaid in 7 weddings. I feel like I'm even missing one when I say that number. So within that, there's a lot of, I've witnessed what kind of stress brides can go through. I've witnessed what happens with families. I've absolutely been a maid of honor and have told the mother of the bride that she's causing a lot of stress, and to help us relax because we're moving as fast as we can. I've been a part of the wedding day festivities and what's been going on for a lot of my friends. And I think that has been really helpful. But within that, Fred and I had been together for about 3 years. And I started to mention that, you know what, we should have a proposal by now, because a lot of the people or the relationships around me showed that this is the timeline you must be on if this person is serious about you, or this is the timeline and how this happens. But I still fully remember this conversation when I was saying, you know what, like, do you want to propose to me? Is there things that are going to happen? And practically, we weren't in the position to host a wedding. We were at 3 years. I was not happy in a corporate position. He was making a shift in what he wanted to do. He had just gotten back from deployment, and we like kind of like looked at each other and we're like, I love you. And he's like, I love you too. This isn't right for us right now. So I wanted to kind of give this understanding is that I am gifted, or I'm privileged to be in a relationship where like we are on the same mental wavelength, let's say, knowing exactly what is necessary and what we need. And that has been so helpful in this planning process. So I just wanted to first start there. 10 years is not for everybody, but it was for us. That's the shorter way of saying that. Either way, I start this episode by saying this because my relationship has taught me a lot about limits. Part of that is also why I started Limitless, is that I realized that I had one very specific vision of it. But I want you to understand that you get to decide what a strong, romantic, long-lasting relationship looks like, because that is a limit that we also put on ourselves. The rom-coms, all the things that are out there may not be helpful, but intuitively, when you understand that you have your person, those things get to continue to develop over time. It was really important for me to say this because I think as I talk about him and I talk about wedding planning, I don't want there to be this idea that this is the way to do it, but I can definitely tell you that we've taken a very non-traditional route. So Fred and I are going to get married in October in Italy, which I'm really excited about, at a small ceremony in a place that is very special to us. So we went on a trip here and we get to go back. Now, what's even more exciting about this is that my fiance is originally from West Africa, and we are going to be meeting, or I am going to be meeting some of his family for the very first time. Now, I've met his mother, of course, but I have never met brothers and sisters. And the fact that we decided to do it in Italy allows me to meet them a little bit more easily. That was something I also learned. Getting visas, if you're from the US, you can get a visa pretty much very easily. If you're from somewhere else, to go to other places, it's a lot. It's not as easy to move. So part of this is like really exciting for me to get to meet all these people that he's been telling me about for a decade now. But early on in our process, we decided we weren't going to plan this alone. So I am not somebody who had the binders, had the thing. So whenever I said I want a wedding planner, Fred actually seeked out a wedding planner as soon as I said, yeah, Europe's on the table, we can go there. So we seeked out a wedding planner that speaks Italian, who's helping us with everything in between. And that is really helpful to me. But also too, Fred is not your average groom, at least in the examples that I was given when I grew up. He's not the planning guy. I want to say that he's not this like big plans guy, but he has an opinion and he wants his opinion heard when it comes to how we do this. So while I may be in the small details, understand the deadlines, he will remind me when we're losing track of what we want the wedding to be. So he's the one that kind of keeps me grounded in a lot of ways, but he's also the artist. So he'll be like, something's not cool, he doesn't like these things, like that's his word of saying he's out, like it's not cool. It means like he thinks it's tacky. I've learned this in the process as well, but he's invested in the look, the vibe, and also reminding me. So one thing that I want to just kind of put this out there is that while he's going to have an opinion on the flowers, he's not going to care that much about the food. I'm just putting it out there. My fiance could absolutely be on a diet of rotisserie chicken, salmon, and pistachios. Like he could eat that every day and be fine. So thankfully, like, and he's actually encouraged some of my foodie friends to help me make some wedding food decisions just for the fact that it's helpful. So just understanding my planning partner is important. So he's there to make things elegant. He's there to keep me grounded from outside influences. In particular, a lot of people have a lot to say about what you decide to do with your wedding. And he's reminding me like, didn't you say you wanted it this way? Or who said that we had to have all of these extra things? I'm like, well, my friend said this, or my relative said that it's essential that you have it this way. And he's like, let's bring it back to the grounding. So giving you the grand context, I found my person, but wedding planning is a lot. That's a short way to say this, right? So let me tell you, just because you are a good planner in life doesn't mean you need to plan your wedding. I want to put that out there. I can strongly say that nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to plan everything in their life. For all of you who are out there planning all the trips for everybody, for all of you who are out there that are always thinking of all the details for somebody else, you deserve to have some support. We all love to be treated to moments we don't have to think through every detail. Like sometimes when I come in the house after a long day and dinner's waiting, like that feeling of like, oh, I don't have to plan these things, that happens with this wedding planner. So I want to put that out there as well. So separately, I'm also going to be having a ceremony for my larger family. I have a really big, large family that I'm from, but we couldn't get them all to Italy. So we're also essentially having 2 events. We're going to celebrate the wedding after we get back. So giving you the full picture, there's a lot happening in between. All the things. Imagine the to-do lists of just both of these events and everything that's kind of like the working thoughts. It's its own business if I really wanted to be serious about it here. So really understanding that this is hard, and it's almost like I wouldn't say a boot camp or a really high pressure example of how can you live your life and run your business, especially when you're an entrepreneur. This is something that we talk about all the time, of thinking about, okay, how can I be able to enjoy my life? I got into this running my own business so I can choose my hours, so I can do the things. But then when you have this other piece of wedding planning, of this other piece of, in general, event planning that can take a part of your life, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn about how can I do both at the best that I can. So that's why I wanted to go into further detail, simply to say, I had to understand the strengths of the people I was planning with. I had to understand that I couldn't do it myself. And I also am just telling you that this is a big push. It's a big thing. So taking all of this, I wanted to share what I've learned about myself, what I've learned, and I'm hoping you're going to be able to take with you. So the top thing that I have absolutely learned about myself in this process is that I am a trusting and flexible person, because I know that I'm going to get the things done at the pace that I can get them done. And sometimes that can cause guilt because somebody else would do it a little differently. So I have never been the binder bride. I'm not the binder of exactly what I want the whole time. In general, I knew I wanted it to be really great experience, but I haven't been planning my wedding all of my life. It just wasn't, that's not who I am, mostly because my biggest, or what I really wanted to do, was check off the person that I knew I had, the person that I'm going to be comfortable standing in front of a room with, who understands me, challenges me, all of the things. So like, it was always about, whenever I thought about my wedding, about getting that biggest check mark crossed off, going like, okay, person that I can spend the rest of my life with. The wedding will be representative of the 2 of us. That was always the most important thing. So what has come of this, though, is that because I didn't really think about all of the little details, I have numerous people reminding me that I should be further along than I am. You should have your wedding dress by now. You should have your veil by now. You should have your wedding bands by now. You haven't booked those flights yet. You haven't, like, there's so much judgment around the way in which you plan your wedding. And even as I say this, I'm preparing myself for whenever the day comes, I decide to have children. It's going to be even more. But I have found a lot to be said about, like, I prefer to know that things are going to happen as they need. And even too, as I say this, I'm not a completely lazy person. I'm not someone who's not getting things done. There's just this sense of I have had to absolutely turn off voices and be like, I'm not speaking about that right now. Like, I've had a lot of that feeling. In particular, one of the main things is that we didn't actually book our flights for our wedding until about a month or so ago. And it was because I was watching flight alerts the whole time. So watching flight alerts to Italy, and I had so many people going, you haven't booked them yet? You haven't booked them yet? There was so much judgment that was coming around, and I was feeling guilty. Like, am I misunderstanding something? But then I can look on the number of stamps I have on my passport, and it was like, you know what? I've done this before numerous times. I know that I'll get there when I need to. So one of the things is that I just learned that the way I do things can cause some people to absolutely lose their minds. Again, like I said, this wedding process has been interesting, all of the above. But then I also realized that by sticking to my guns, that I have expanded what this kind of process can be for others. So being able to absolutely say, yeah, we booked our flights and we got them at this cost. The person who had booked them out like a year in advance was like, oh, there's a different way to do this. And even to like, I found my dress at the pace that I needed to find my dress. And I had more than one person go, oh, I thought I would have to do that. Like I would have to go to 15 shops before I could even figure out what I wanted. I'm like, I knew exactly what I wanted and talked to the shops until I went in. So there's this process of understanding that any type of thing that you're planning in your life, whether it's business, whether it's, your partnership, what your marriage is supposed to be like, but in this case, your wedding, is that if you don't feel certain about who you are, you're going to have a lot of extra stress. It doesn't mean that even after that, it's going to feel a little bit funky, but I learned that I actually am very flexible and trusting. And I, in a lot of ways, have been able to bring more of that into my business than I had in the past, going like, wait, this works for me in this general arena of life. I get to bring it in this way as well. Really, truly, though, I wouldn't say that wedding planning has been more about me stepping into this new identity. So aside from the decorations and all of the things, I remember perfectly the day after I was proposed to and said yes, of course, that I was like, I had this like running question in my head, like, am I fiance material? I had that like this, am I worthy of being called a fiance? It had a lot to do with me feeling that I had a lot more left in my life. Like I had, like, did I do all the wild and crazy things? Am I ready to like make this shift and this change, moving into this person that I wanted to be? And I think that there's a sense of, women and how we feel. And there was a sense of I wanted to look a certain way and be a certain way and feel as if I checked off a certain lessons in my life before I became a fiance or wife. And I want to say that this was something that was really deep rooted. It was really hard for me to kind of just like walk past. But I decided because of this, I opened a larger conversation with Fred about, like, what does he see the title as fiance meaning, or what does he see the title as wife meaning in the long run? Like, am I going to become the caretaker of the house? There was so many things, or like how does this person who decided that he agreed that we were going to be together, like, sees this thing? And he's like, and it was so interesting for the fact that, again, I was putting these limits on myself of what that title was supposed to mean for me, but also deciding that like my quote unquote life was over, not in a, that sounds a little bit drastic, right? But but that I wasn't allowed to act like a single 20-year-old or 30-year-old or whatever the hell process it was supposed to be after the ring was on. So this has opened a lot of like discussions around what is it that we want to do with our lives, and how we don't let the titles define us in a lot of ways. So taking this really close look at what in my life was serving me and what in my life was what others expected of me. That was something that I learned a lot in this process of being able to say, I want this to work for me, not by what my grandmother or what my, third grade teacher would have told me what it meant to be a fiance, right? What it meant to be a wife. So this has absolutely trickled into a lot of things in my business as well. I feel like, especially in the past 2 years, it's been really about me going, you know what, this thing never served me. This makes sense for me. A lot of business decisions I've made, somebody else may not have made, for the fact that, there's other advice out there, but I wasn't intuitively, and going off of my 14 years of experience of building brands, was actually exhibiting within my own business. So there was a lot of me turning off other people's voices here and going like, what do I see as myself? And for many of you, if you've been listening to the podcast, you heard me start using the word creator CEO, because that's exactly the way I want to see myself. And that got to shift and change because I get to decide what my title is. It also adjusted the way I'm even like looking at my lifestyle, specifically around drinking. So I found that when I'm deciding where do I want to be in my life in this stage of where I'm at, I didn't want drinking to feel like peer pressure anymore. So I've reduced it. I'm not sober, but I've reduced it in a lot of ways just for the fact that I want to feel my best, and and I was realizing that a lot of my decisions around drinking were based off of what others wanted for me. So being able to know that some of this like stage and these identity shifts were such a big deal within the wedding, that it allowed me to really take a look at the way I was going into my life. Now, I don't take this lightly, like, because I want you to understand, like, the identity or the responsibilities that are put on being a fiance, being a wife, being a bride, is something that's hard grained. It's not something that I can just like release and break through. Like, I like the overly planned bride that knows exactly what flowers she wants. Like, that there was a guilt that I didn't have that exact idea right away. There was a guilt and the idea that I was like, oh, I have to be this caregiver. And he looked at me like, we've never talked about this. Like, you have to act like you're the run of the house. I'm like, so I had all these ingrained pieces. So I don't want to take it lightly when I say I I really had to I really had to decide what made sense for me about those titles. But also it just brought me back to realizing that I get to decide what fiance means. I get to decide what CEO, wife, best friend means. Like, I have that power, and we think we don't, but truly it's just taking a moment to come back into that. You realize that you are the source of everything you are creating, even the titles, even the way you walk around, is being able to come back and go, my voice is the most important. And this relationship that I'm in, I get to say, this is what I see as what our partnership's supposed to be. I feel like that was really important for me to share. I feel like a weight lifted off my chest, going like, you know what? I am fiance material. It's such a big feeling. And I want to acknowledge that, as you're moving through stages of life, and what, at least from what I've learned, is the continuation of knowing that you want to come back to yourself. You want to define what this next stage is supposed to feel like. Okay. Two big things at the beginning, what I learned about myself there. But another thing that I learned within this process is that my business was not set up for me not to be on every day, at least not well enough for me to fully be prepared. So I have officially decided to tell you that energetics and solopreneurship, like, they don't mix. So, like, when I say this, I'm meaning that if you are showing up every day and trying to create content every single day, or trying to build a launch every single day, and you're doing a lot of things off the cuff, a lot of messy action, and that being the only thing that you do, this business is not sustainable. It's simply not sustainable, for the fact that I ran people's brands and businesses, and as somebody who worked with them, knowing that we needed to be a little ready in advance, or we wanted to start the prep or the campaign for their business, and then I wasn't fully treating my business the same way. And what happened with this is that I kept getting dished this kind of BS information from good coaches and from bad, that are saying like, oh, you don't need to be planned ahead, or, oh, you don't need a system, or you don't need a strategy. For some reason, and especially in the past 3 years, I have heard that the strategy means hustle. And it's such a bunch of bullshit. Like, it really is, for the fact that strategy is simply making a method that works best for you, paying attention to how your clients react, or even how your energy has worked in the past, and making something easier for you. So what ended up happening was that I kept feeling this high pressure to get everything done on a daily basis, instead of breaking it apart into what was actually sustainable for me. So on a regular basis, I always will have 3 health tasks I need to do, 3 business tasks, if I'm being nice to myself. Usually that will be a little bit larger, and now 2 wedding tasks to complete on a daily basis. So if I decide that on a Monday I want to hit all those tasks, and then I got to do that again tomorrow, Wednesday, Friday, it's absolutely a trip to burnout. So being able to know that the more I could automate my systems, the more that I could ask for support, was a big deal. And of course, I don't think any of you are going to be surprised by this. Batching batching was something that I had kind of lost sight of for a little while, for the fact that I was posting and I was getting live and I was putting things out there on a daily basis. But this idea that that some people are meant to post in the moment and some people are meant to batch, I'm going to call bullshit. I'm just going to call it. I am a manifesting generator, and I can tell you that I easily have ideas. I easily can put things together, but the concept of me believing that I'm going to be able to generate from beginning to end a piece of content every single day has got to be the most unloving thing to do. And also, if we're talking about this in the grand scheme of things, the worst feeling when it comes to being a CEO who also has things going on in their life, I would say that the biggest thing that came across from this is that I would feel guilty about something in my business while I was like at an event where people were hosting it for me. We'll get into this in a second, but how it's got to be one of the worst feelings when you're like literally a party for you, and all you're thinking about is like, I didn't get that post up, or I didn't get that content ready. I'm not gonna, my business isn't gonna work the way it's supposed to because I'm here opening gifts at my bridal shower. It's the worst feeling. So being a CEO or being a creator CEO in your business, that meant for me to go back to some roots of going, how can I be nice to my future self? Now, because I know the retort or the reaction I'm going to get here is that a lot of people like to cite feminine energy when they're talking about posting in the moment, or inspiration, like launching without a strategy, or doing all of these things, like do what you feel, this feeling. And I'm not saying that's not true. That's not true at all. Like absolutely, you're going to find the more that you take care of yourself, you're going to have that kind of energy. But feminine energy, just like masculine energy, if that's the only thing you're bringing into your business, can be toxic as well. So being able to know, I knew that being a creator CEO, it meant that I wanted the inspiration, the power, the creativity. I wanted the space and have it be so spacious for me to promote and create the results for my clients and my business by the kind of offers I was putting out there. And by having easier processes, easier rituals, that masculine energy, right? I was able to do those things on a regular basis. So my systems in the past year have gotten to be so much easier, automated where they can be, and repeatable. Enough so that I haven't had to lead any high energy launches to meet my revenue goals. My last launch absolutely came from some easy lead gen systems, and I've got a full client load right now. And I was just realizing how much I want to just gift myself this ease. And that came from, one, realizing I was being fed some BS tactics that aren't going to work for me long term, but also two, finding that balance of being able to be spacious and creative because my systems and my rituals allow me to do that. So let me get into this just a little bit more about why this is important. I am a bride this year. I'm a fiance. I get to do this, and I absolutely don't want to feel guilty while I'm at a bridal shower that I didn't do that reel that I was supposed to do, or I don't want to have to take my computer with me everywhere just so I can make work on any little increments of time that I'm supposed to be getting quality with the people who are ready to celebrate me. I don't want to feel like everything has to be content either. Like I want to be able to turn on my camera and take a video and just be able to say like, this is what happened this day, and it gets to be a memory. So there's a sense that whenever you are trying to be on every day, that you can never turn off your business brain. So I get to be a business leader in one sense, and I also have given myself the space to be a bride in another way. So knowing that the guilt, I didn't want that guilt. I had to come back to what some people may call masculine energy, but ultimately it was systems, rituals, routines. And I know many of you listening to the podcast have heard me talk about that a lot more this year. So the guilt of not showing up how I want to in my business while I had a reason to be with my family has to be one of the top feelings I never want to feel. Like I don't want to have that debate in my mind of what I should be doing in that moment. I want to be present. So the gift of presence is what you give yourself by having these routines and rituals, and then absolutely remembering those processes. So for me, it had a lot to do with turning off some voices and turning up mine, and being able to, in general, think about a relationship with my current self, gifting something to my future self. It helped me a lot. Another piece within this is that you can do anything, but you can't do everything all at once. That was the thing that I had to even write down for myself. And I took a real moment to realize how much of a village I do have within my life and in my business. So just putting this out there, I have a podcast editor and content manager who supports me in more than one way. She's absolutely somebody who's reminding me of what needs to go out. She puts out fires before I even need to be involved. She's somebody who thinks through the process and is very invested. And I can't tell you how much I'm excited that she's a part of my team. She's so supportive. I hired a support coach for my membership who absolutely lifts my energy on a regular basis. I have 3 accountability buddies who help me stick to my goals, and all come with different energy, and I bring mine, of course. I've had a lot of healing support, therapy, and different things this year, which has been really supportive. Like I said, that wedding planner, I have not had to research one thing. She's like, here's your options. Here's where we could get the cake. These are the things you should do with the food. I haven't had to use that time at all to be able to know that we are getting the best of what and within budget, because she is in my wheelhouse. Even though I can definitely tell you that Italian wedding planners are a little more laid back than what you would imagine. And in general, just the last call I had with her, I'm like, we're on time, like we're on task. She goes, yeah, we're good. We're absolutely fine. She's just reminding me over and over again, like, we're on point. Don't worry. So knowing that having these people and not putting this all on myself has been a big deal. I also have a trainer. I also have a nutritionist, because your girl wants to look snatched and beautiful on the day of her wedding. But also, I think what's really important to share within this is that I have gotten the opportunity to do a wedding in a different way. So like I said, I was a bridesmaid in many weddings. 7? Did I say 7 earlier? I feel like I need to do a full count on the fingers, remember how many there were. But I have decided, mostly because we're having such a small wedding, with our wedding, everyone is special. Everyone in Italy who's making their way to and seeing us there, if they were on the invite, are special people in our lives who know the both of us, who've in general been a part of the process. And it's really important. So the idea of us having that, and then also having bridesmaids and also having a wedding party, didn't really fit. But I also, once I made that decision, I also wanted to acknowledge the people that I wanted to, one, support me, but also feel special throughout the process of this wedding. So I have a group of people who put on a bridal shower and a mini bar hop when I was back in Ohio, which was beautiful and amazing, and like had to be there's so many silly memories from it, but got to have that part of it for me. I have a different group of people who are putting on a bachelorette party for me out in California, and that's going to be beautiful. And I've absolutely had people who know that they're my maid, they would be my maid of honors if I had the wedding party, that they're involved in the wedding dress shopping. My mother's been involved in all of these processes. So being able to know that a part of like encouraging people to be a part of this is asking for help, is knowing that especially with this type of event, people are overjoyed to support you. They're overjoyed to be a part of it. And I think that, the way I had been a bridesmaid was, I got to buy the dress, I got to go to all the things, I got to just drop a ton of money. I didn't like that. I didn't love that part of it, mostly because the trope of every bride, when they say, you can wear your bridesmaid dress again, I swear I wanted to wrangle people's necks about it. You cannot wear a bridesmaid dress again unless you let them choose the dress. I will say that, like, there's no such thing. There is no such thing as being able to wear a dress again. It's such a lie. But what I wanted from the people who are participating in the wedding was for them to feel special and for me to feel supported by them. And I think I can check that off my list of saying I've absolutely had people so involved and so supportive in the areas that I need them to be, that everyone who's getting invited to this wedding, everyone who's being participating in it is going to feel like they are acknowledged. And I think that's really important. So the reason I want to bring this in is that I always talk about this in business, but we were never meant to do these things alone. We were never meant to put this all on our own backs. I'm not just talking about a wedding, I'm talking about business. So being able to be like, who can support me? I can't do everything at once. So who can support me in a free way, in a paid way, and just in general going, I know this person has some insight for me. Let me ask them to help me. This is what this is about. Being able to talk about community starts with who's supporting you and where you need to go. So this is what I've learned so far. I feel like as the wedding dates get closer, I'm happy to share more about how I'm going to be taking my honeymoon and letting my business run at the same time. There's a lot of fun things coming along the way. But the biggest thing I really would love to get across, or just rounding this out, is that I have learned that I was putting limits on myself about what a relationship was supposed to be, about what the title of being a fiance is. And this process allowed me to come back to myself and own the way in which I plan and the way in which I build. Being able to walk into what is going to be a one-of-a-kind event in my life has allowed me to see that I get to own that I do things in my own way, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I got to turn off voices that weren't supportive to me, which was a big deal. Even too, as I walked into a new arena in my life, I got to define what the title of fiance and wife meant to me, especially talking with my own fiance about what that meant. When it came directly to business, wedding planning allowed me to realize that my systems weren't supportive of me having this kind of life. So being able to automate, ritualize, and own the way in which it works for me has allowed me to have easier launches, has allowed me to be able to be present while people are celebrating me. And finally, acknowledging, showing appreciation and gratitude to everyone who's in your life that is ready to support you is something that you really can't put a price tag on, whether you're asking for their help for free or you're paying someone to really work things through. So this is where I tell you that I have a new appreciation of how discipline creates freedom, how my relationships are what helps me rise to my next level, and that I am the source of exactly how I want this year, my business, and my life to go. I hope this episode helps you to think about how this can be really supportive to you. Please let me know what was one takeaway that you took from today, whether you share it in a review or go ahead and talk to me over on the gram at Jamie Ratterman. So JamieRattermann. Until next time, live a little more limitless.